There are going to be things that happen that are just beyond your control. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing that you could have done to prevent it. And I know personally, I used to spend so much time just like stressing or trying to fix things that were beyond my control, or trying to understand things that weren't meant for me to understand. And all it did was delay my own progress and make me more and more unhappy. And so I had to get to a point in life where I just say, oh well, something is not working out, it's not happening, this person don't want to be with me, this job not working out, whatever it is, sometimes you just have to say, oh well.
The sun shines on all of my glory. My flaws don't look so bad at all. What was I so afraid of?
Hey everybody, it's Sharmel. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video. So today's video is a chit chat, get ready with me. So in this chit chat video today, I'm going to be talking about just going through those transitional phases in your life, the quarter life crisis, and just dealing with unhappiness. So yeah, we are going to get right into it. Per usual, all the products that I'll be using will be listed and linked down in the description box. I'm not going to talk about any of the products really, so if you want any information about any of the makeup that I'm going to be using, definitely check the description box. But let's get into this topic. Alright you guys, so if you have been following my channel, following my own just like personal self-development journey for the last couple of years, I have been talking about going through this transitional phase. And y'all, I just had a birthday just this past month. I turned 33, which is so crazy to me. Sometimes I be like, girl, you was really an adult, and I be like, I'm really an adult. It's just crazy. Every year around my birthday, I always just get very like reflective, and I always just like end up reflecting on just like my life, just looking at my life, seeing how far I've come, thinking about all the different experiences that I've had. With having a birthday, it's definitely brought up some like feelings and emotions, not necessarily bad or anything like that, but just more so reflective. And also recently I seen like a TikTok video or something, and they were talking about the quarter life crisis. And the quarter life crisis is like from like mid-20s to like early 30s, and it's something that I have definitely experienced. I've talked about it here on my channel. I vividly remember filming a video. I was like 27 at the time, and I felt like that's when I was really in the thick of like feeling all the just stressors of being in your late 20s, the uncertainty of being in your late 20s, this pressure to feel like you have to have everything together, and just feeling like a failure. Honestly, I just felt like I was not doing enough. I was nowhere near where I thought I would have been by that age. My life was completely different from what I thought life would be. Like I said, I just recently turned 33, and it's crazy that, you know, just in hindsight, looking back at everything, I can definitely say within these like last few years, I have been coming out of that phase. And there's so many things that I've learned through my like quarter life crisis, and there's definitely been like a lot of growth that has come out of that experience. There's been a lot of physical growth, spiritual growth, mental growth, financial growth, but I feel like none of that would have been possible without the right perspective shift. If I learned anything during my quarter life crisis over these last 6 years, it has really just been about my mindset and the perspective shift. Because like I said, a lot of great things have happened. I have just matured, I've elevated, because it's life. At some point you should start to reap some of the benefits of your work. But even with all of that being said, my life still isn't perfect. There's still a lot of struggles that I deal with. And if it's one thing that I learned the most about going through that transitional quarter life crisis phase, is that life doesn't stop happening, right? But the way that I respond to life happening has definitely changed. It's like you can have all of your ducks in a row and a seagull will come and mess everything up. Like, I feel like I spent so much of my 20s thinking that, oh, if I had this, then my life would be right. If I was making this amount of money, then my life would be right. If I had a boyfriend or a partner or a husband, children, all of those things, then my life would be together. As we just continue to grow and mature and get older, sometimes you accomplish those things and they don't necessarily bring you or give you what you thought that they would. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Even when life does give you what you want, there's always going to be some level of an unknown that is going to come and just throw everything off. And so yeah, life continues to happen, but the way that I respond to it is really what keeps me sane and keeps me able to keep pushing forward throughout my life journey. The mindset shift, that is going to be what carries you through these unhappy moments. And the first mind shift and perspective shift that I had to have was differentiating between like happiness and joy, because I feel like so many people, we are yearning and searching for happiness, and there's nothing wrong with that, but happiness and joy are two completely different things, right? So the way that joy was broken down to me is that joy is a sense of undisturbed peace and contentment, whereas happiness is more dependent on like your happening, what you have. A lot of times we base our happiness on what we have, who we have. So when we have those things, we're happy, but as soon as there's any shift or change in those things, it makes us unhappy. Whereas with joy, regardless of my circumstance, I had to develop a mindset of that I'm okay, right? I try to find peace within it. It may not be what I want right now, but there's still some peace and contentment that I can find within my life overall. There's a lot of things that I don't have yet that I desire in my life, but it doesn't mean that my life is bad. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with my life. I don't dwell on what I don't have, and I don't allow what I don't have to ruin the good things that I do have within my life. And I feel like getting that perspective shift was definitely one of the first steps to like really navigating that quarter life crisis, really navigating the transitional phase that I have been in for the last few years. And then the next thing that I had to do was accept change, y'all. Accepting change makes your life so much easier. I feel like a lot of us are unhappy because of our unwillingness to change. And the thing with change is that it can be voluntary or involuntary, but change is constant. Change is consistent. Whether you want to change or not, it's going to happen with or without your permission. So accepting that change is just a natural function of the human experience. It has made my life so much more peaceful and so much more easier, because it's like, it's nothing I can do about it. Change is gonna happen with or without me. Mental changes, spiritual changes, as we get older, we're just going to naturally mature. So far, I have thoroughly enjoyed my 30s, a lot more than my 20s, but there are definitely things that I miss about being in my 20s, right? There are a lot of days where I'm like, ooh, I am not as young as I used to be. I'm still young, right? I'm not sitting here like I'm this old, super old, mature woman, but being around like 20-year-olds, especially like early 20-year-olds, is just a lot different now, right? Every time I think I'm super young, I just get around real young people and I'd be like, yeah, I'm really not that young anymore. And y'all, that's another video for another day, because there's also a lot of mental changes and struggles within realizing you're getting older. But yeah, like I said, change is just constant. Change is going to happen with or without your permission. So the best thing that you can do is just accept it. Another thing that I had to work on was to stop living my life in absolutes. Like many people, I was one of those people who had my whole life planned out from the time I was 18 years old about how I was gonna do this, how I was gonna do that. When I look back, I feel like a big part of my stressors were because I had made all these definite plans and I was just so hell-bent on those plans happening the way that I said that I wanted them to happen. And you hear people say all the time, like, I would never do this, I would never do that, until life happens, and sometimes you're in situations that you thought that you would never do. And so yeah, I had to stop living my life in absolutes. As one way being the end all be all. And by no means I'm not telling you to not have standards. You should always have standards. You should always stand on your principles. However, you still need to leave room for the unknown, because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And there's a lot of things that you won't know until you experience. Even if you do all the research, there's just parts of life that you won't be able to really fully understand until you actually experience it. Let me do my eyebrows real quick. Y'all know I cannot talk and do my eyebrows at the same time. So many people, especially in your 20s, especially early 20s, we make a lot of decisions based on temporary feelings, right? We make decisions based on temporary spaces. Sometimes you'll be in a space or you'll be doing something and it may be for that season, but we start making long-term decisions based on that temporary season that we're in. And like I mentioned before, change is natural, right? We are going to go through life changes, but the thing is, when we make these long-term decisions based on temporary feelings, as soon as we start experiencing any changes or desiring change, we end up in this like internal battle, because we have made like we have been living our lives in these absolutes, right? So I said I was gonna do this. This is what I liked at this moment, and because I like it and because I said that I was gonna do this forever, I'm having feelings of wanting to change, but I already told myself I was gonna do this. So now I'm like at a tug of war with myself for something that is supposed to occur naturally. And that's how people get stuck in like long-term relationships that aren't serving them. This is how people get stuck in jobs and careers that aren't serving them, that they're miserable in, because we've been living our lives in absolutes, because we said we were going to do this thing. Even when we have plateaued in whatever it is that we said we were gonna do, we're afraid to change. One, because we're comfortable in these situations. Even if they mean us no good, even if we're unhappy, we will sacrifice our happiness at the expense of a decision that we made based on a temporary feeling or a temporary space that we were in. The longer you wait to change, life is gonna keep changing around you. But the longer you decide to stay in that situation, I feel like you're only doing yourself a disservice. And this is something that I definitely had to learn. There were a lot of things that I had to realize I didn't want, that I didn't like. Although I may have wanted it or liked it at a younger age, I had to have a conversation like, you don't even really want these things. A big part of the way that I shaped my life, especially as a young adult, was based on what other people had told me that I should do, based on what society has said, this is what you're supposed to do. And when you do these things, it'll ensure you a perfect life. And I did those things thinking that I would have this perfect life in the end. And when it didn't happen, all I felt was resentment, unhappiness, and that is like where my quarter life crisis really started around 26, because I had did everything I was supposed to do. I had went to college, graduated from college, got the degree. I did have some career changes in the midst of it, but I entered the workforce. The workforce was not even really giving. I was barely making enough money to really sustain myself. I was living with my parents well into my late 20s. Like, all of these things were happening. They were telling me, don't have children young, don't do this, don't do that, don't get caught up with these young men and these boys having babies for people. And I did all of those things thinking that in the end it would guarantee me this like perfect life. So when none of that was happening, it definitely kind of threw me off, and I feel like I just kind of got off on a tangent. But yeah, I say all that to say I had to stop living in absolutes, right? in the absolute that if I do this thing, it will guarantee me this. I can make decisions and hope for the best outcome, but it doesn't assure me that outcome. And I can't live my life as if that doing this thing will absolutely render a certain outcome, if that makes sense. And y'all, a lot of what I'm talking about, like I said, like although I feel like I'm coming out of that quarter life crisis, my life still isn't perfect. There's still a lot of things that I'm still trying to grasp and come to terms with. So I'm not saying all of these things like once you have this perspective and this mind switch that things will happen overnight. And that's another thing, once they do happen doesn't mean that you won't revert or you won't have seasons of regression. Change is natural and it's necessary. And this is something that I kind of went through recently as far as like living in absolutes and like with my log journey, right? So going into my log journey, I kind of have the mindset, if I keep them forever, wonderful. If I don't, at least I tried, right? That was my mindset going into it. But I also didn't realize how much like my community would grow because of my log journey. And so because my community was growing, because I was making a lot more money in regards to my content because of my log journey, once I started feeling like I didn't want them anymore, I was afraid to let go because I was thinking about the community. I was thinking about the money. Deciding to switch gears was a lot harder for me than I think some people may realize. Outside of like the physical aspect of the hair, I tell you guys all the time, hair is just hair to me. So I was not necessarily worried about my hair per se, but it's just the other things that come along with it. I'm at a point in my life where I'm no longer willing to just like sacrifice, even if it's just the smallest of things that make me happy, right? It's so much chaos going on in this world between inflation, these wars, all the other chaos that's happening in the world. I'm just at a point in my life where I am not willing to sacrifice those small little things that bring me some level of joy. Obviously with life there's going to be periods of sacrifice. Sometimes you're gonna have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but I also don't feel like every aspect of my life should be a sacrifice. At some point I should be able to enjoy whatever it is that I enjoy. I was trying to figure out what kind of eye look I wanted to do, but this is definitely not it, but we're going to roll with it. Another thing that has really helped me along my journey is learning how to balance ebbs and flows, right? With life, there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs, and there's going to be some stuff in between. But I used to make the mistake of thinking that every low was like the end of the world. Every time I ran into any inconvenience, anything that was unfavorable, anything that I didn't see coming, like I would treat it as if it was the end of the world. And I had to learn to stop doing that. One thing that I learned, like I told y'all, life is going to continue. The thing is, when I would treat everything as if it was the end of the world, first of all, I would just waste a bunch of unnecessary energy, right? I would spend so much energy thinking that my life was over, that everything was just ruined, that nothing was going to work out. And in the end, it always works out. I'm gonna let y'all know now, in the end, it'll work out. It may not work out the way you thought it was gonna work out, or in the process or the timeline that you thought it was going to work out, but I promise you it will eventually work out. Every bad situation is not the end of the world, and you cannot allow, again, temporary feelings and emotions to dictate long-term decisions. Because if you're not careful and if you sit in those feelings of defeat for too long, you will stay there, and it's going to be harder to pull yourself out of it. This is something I've even experienced recently. Like, I've been feeling just very unmotivated. I have been dealing with some self-sabotage. I've been dealing with a little imposter syndrome lately, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I haven't been posting content like that. And a part of it was just me feeling kind of lost and confused, not really knowing the direction and things like that of where I wanted to go with my channel, with my content, since I've combed out my locks. And for a minute I was letting it consume me, and it's like the longer I went without making content, I felt like the harder it was for me to make content. So by all means, I'm all for sitting in your feelings, allowing yourself to feel whatever disappointments that you have, but you also have to learn how to balance the ebbs and flow. Everything cannot be the end of the world, and you have to learn how to keep it pushing. And I've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but I also had to stop people pleasing. For the most part, I'm one of them people who will go along to get along. Not about anything crazy, but like I don't argue with people. I used to just, again, go along to get along, and in the end I was only mad at myself for dealing with things that I didn't want to deal with. It would be things that I know I didn't want to either participate in, whatever it is, jobs I knew I didn't want to work, tasks I knew I didn't want to do. Like I said earlier, I would do a lot of things because it was the right thing to do. It's because society said that you would do it, and in the end I was always left unhappy. And I had to stop people pleasing, regardless if they're family, friends, whatever. If I don't want to participate, if I don't want to indulge, if it's something that I'm genuinely not interested in, I'm not gonna do it. And I feel like within these last few years, you can even see it if you go back and watch either my transparency talk videos, or even, I feel like I used to call them something else back in the day. Was it Tea Talk? It was something like that. I used to have a different name for them when I first started doing like these chit chat videos. But even in my demeanor, you can see how like it's almost as if I was afraid to speak my truth, speak what I want to say. And within these last few years, y'all, I definitely speak my mind. And I don't necessarily do it in an aggressive, I can be very direct, but I don't think I'm necessarily aggressive. But that's something that I had to learn, because I was doing all of these things for everyone else, and every time I did something for everyone else, I feel like a little part of me would be suppressed more and more and more. And the more I suppressed my feelings, my thoughts, whatever it is that I wanted, the more unhappy I became. And so I've definitely learned how to use my voice within these last few years. And again, it doesn't have to be mean, it doesn't have to be aggressive, but I've learned how to be direct and speak my piece. All right, so my face is almost done. Just gotta do my lips. I went ahead and applied some mascara and a little cluster on each side, something really simple, a little eyeliner too. But yeah, the last thing that has really helped me in my overall growth and development has been developing an oh well spirit. And this is advice that I give all of my family and friends, like, develop an oh well spirit. There are going to be things that happen that are just beyond your control. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing that you could have done to prevent it. There are just certain life circumstances that are beyond all of our control. And I know personally, I used to spend so much time just like stressing or trying to fix things that were beyond my control, or trying to understand things that weren't meant for me to understand. And all it did was delay my own progress and make me more and more unhappy. And so I had to get to a point in life where I just say, oh well. Something is not working out, it's not happening, this person don't want to be with me, this job not working out, whatever it is, sometimes you just have to say, oh well. That's it. Oh well. I made a mistake. Oh well. I did this wrong. Oh well. This didn't happen the way that I thought it was. Oh well. Some things you just have to charge to the game and keep pushing. If you don't take nothing else from this video, learn how to charge things to the game and keep pushing. Oh well. And I'm laughing while I'm saying that, but I'm so serious. Like, sometimes I'll be on the phone with my mom and we'll be talking about stuff and I just be like, oh well. Like, it's literally that simple. Oh well. Should I have done that? I usually only outline my lip. Oh Lord, I shouldn't have done that, but it is what it is now. I thought I wanted to go dark brown, but I think I changed. Maybe it's the scarf. Hold on. The fact that we are at the end of 2023 already, we're in this fourth quarter, that is bizarre. It's been an interesting year nonetheless. Life ain't been perfect. I've had a good year. Has it been perfect? Absolutely not, but I am at peace. And it goes back again to my mind shift. It goes back to a perspective shift and learning how to look at life from a place of joy and gratitude, rather than trying to grasp on to all these things to make me happy. And that has definitely just been really significant in my overall development. All right, y'all, so I'm about to put on some earrings, jewelry, then I'm gonna come back and close this video out. But that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you yourself have gone through the quarter life crisis or you're in the midst of it, please let me know your experience down below, as well as any things that you have been implementing into your process to help you along the journey. I would love to hear you guys' experience. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you beautiful people in my next video. Bye.